In Ireland, surprisingly enough, we have a very low crime rate. I don't know why, but there is in Ireland an exceedingly low crime rate in comparison to anywhere else in the world. And there's a story about a bank inspector, and it's a true story. A bank inspector travelled over to the west of Ireland, and he arrived in a small town, and all they had was a pub and a couple of houses and a bank. And he went into the bank, and there's not a soul there. No tellers, no money, nothing. All the money's laid out. He looks over the counter, and there's nobody there. And he goes back and looks through the frosted glass, and there's the manager and the three tellers having a game of poker. So he thinks, right, I'll show him. Goes behind the counter, goes to the alarm bell, presses it, and goes, and 2 minutes later, a fellow from the pub comes across with 4 pints and 10. Right there. Believe it or not, but it's a true story. And I suppose the reason that the Irish don't commit a great deal of crime is we believe that crime doesn't pay, in some cases more than others. This goes to prove that crime doesn't pay. You ever thought what would happen if we didn't have any crime? You ever thought of all the number of people who'd be out of work if we didn't have crime? Judges, barristers, solicitors, policemen, policewomen, even criminals would be out of work. How would they make a living? They'd have to turn to crime. That's an Irishism. But crime does exist. People are always asking me what I do to relax. I play golf. I go out, I walk in the fresh air, I play 18 holes of golf. I come back home and my wife says, "Do you feel nice and relaxed?" And I say, "Why don't you mind your own bloody business?" Nobody is more indifferent to another man's feelings than a golfer. For example, you get the gentleman who rushes into the club and he said, "Did you hear that Carruthers beat his wife to death with his number 5 iron?" He said, "Did he, by golly? How many strokes?" You get the two deadly enemies playing golf. And out on the 9th hole, one of them had a heart attack. Stroke. He went, and the other fellow marked it on his card. You get the drunk who arrives home and waiting for him is the very formidable figure of the wife. And she looks at him and she says, "Drunk again?" He says, "So am I." She said, "What does the clock say?" He says, "The clock says tuck, bong, dingy, ticky, tick." She said, "Where have you been?" He said, "I've been with a sick friend." She said, "What's wrong with him?" He said, "He's too sick to tell me." Every man, woman, and child has had what we call an embarrassing experience. I've had many. I'd like to tell you about them, but I'm too embarrassed. I mean, it's all right to be embarrassed in front of 2 or 3 people. But to be embarrassed on television, I mean, is the most embarrassing of all, because millions of people see it. And I had a friend of mine years ago who was what we call linking a show in which they showed pieces of film. And there was a piece of Elvis Presley film, which was very gentle for Elvis Presley. And what he had to say afterwards was, you might think after seeing that clip of Elvis Presley that he's gone a little quiet. And somebody came to him and said, "You've got to be careful how you say that." And he said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, you could easily say, instead of saying a little quiet, you could say a little queer." And that's a terrible thing to say to anybody on television. Because your mind goes, "God, don't let me say that." And he's waiting, and the film clip comes up, shows, and the camera comes on, and he said, "You might think, after seeing that clip of Elvis Presley, that he's gone a little quiet. I mean queer." "I don't mean queer, I mean quiet!" It's very easy to do. I mean, that fellow over there, you could be embarrassed if I were to tell you how embarrassing you look from here. But I don't wish to embarrass her, so I won't say anything about it. The only thing I know is when I said that, that lady beside you nearly broke her neck. You know the main difference between the English and the Irish? The Irish accept death, whereas the English don't. Instead of moaning and groaning and wailing about death in Ireland, we have a party. Whereas the English have coming out parties, the Irish have going in. call them a wake. They're called wakes. I don't know why, because the fellow's never ever going to come out of it. They lay out in the corner of the room in a suit, and all the whiskey is brought in, little Cayley band, they go... God, he's looking well. Lovely suit he's got on. He looked nice in heaven and that. The fellow said he's not going to heaven. He said, you mean he's going down below? He's not going there either. He said, not going up, not going down. Where the hell is he going? He's not going anywhere. He's an atheist. I said, what about that? All dressed up and nowhere to go. The funny thing about doing comedy is you're never quite sure how an audience is going to react to what you're doing. Sometimes you tell a gag and it goes bang, get a great big laugh. Other times you do a gag and you lay an egg. By God, that hurts. I've walked off to the sound of my own feet many times. I occasionally, when I work in nightclubs, I tell a gag, and up to now it has never ever got a laugh, and I'm going to try it on you tonight. See what happens. There's a gentleman in the bar. There's another gentleman standing beside him, and he said, you might be interested to know that I am a sadist. I gain pleasure from giving physical pain. And I would say, well, rather interesting. I'm a masochist. And I gain pleasure from receiving pain. The sailor said, would you like to come home with to my place? I have a rather large bullwhip there. And the masochist said, I'd love to. Arrive home, he strips off, he stands in the front room, naked, quivering with anticipation. And the sadist is in the corner with the big bullwhip. And the masochist looks at me and said, are you going to whip me? And the sadist said, no. A sergeant and a private in the last war were court-martialed for kicking a general. And the chairman of the court said to the sergeant, why did you kick the general? He said, was what, sir? He said, the general's car drove up, and door open, he stepped out, right in my foot. I'd been trained to kill, react, boom, I kicked him. It's a complete reaction on my part. The general said, well, quite plausible. He said to the private, he said, why did you kick him? He said, well, I was standing there beside the sergeant, sir. Saw the car pull up, the door open, the general get out. I saw the sergeant kick the general, and I thought the war was over, so I'll have a go. You might remember that some wars can be phony.